hitchhiked. One time he drove my aunt. Come on. This is your entertainment.
This is your cheap entertainment.
Okay. Wherever you are, come up here and plug the thing in. Did she leave? What a coward. Okay, can you see if we... you'll have to help us with this, I'm afraid. That was my daughter Tamara, and she has helped me with all of my photographs and put them into this slideshow. Anyway, after Dad separated from the Army, yeah, come up and help him. Brandy, you know these things. You know, Gene can operate a tractor, but he doesn't know much about this stuff.
I don't have enough slot.
Well,
Pull that, that's the pointer, so let's pull that.
You want to pull them out.
No, that's, or you pull the mouse, because you're not using the
Yeah, I'm
mouse
not
here.
using it.
There's the mouse right here.
While they're doing this, I'm going to apologize in advance. I have been sick the last 2 weeks with that nasty, nasty cold. So if you see me grabbing my tissues or throwing a cough drop in my mouth, please excuse it.
We're glad you're here.
Oh, well, thank you. Anyway, Dad separated from the Army in Menlo Park, California, 1946, and he drove down to the San Joaquin Valley and joined the rest of his immediate family who had all immigrated to California.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be on some type of a program.
There it is.
That looks changing.
Is that the first one?
It's supposed to be on some kind of a time thing, but if it doesn't work, Gene will just have to push the button. Anyway, on to my mother, who was born in 1922, one of 11 children. Again, and she was born in Valiant. Her father was a blacksmith, and her mother was a homemaker. 2 of her brothers also served in the Pacific Fleet during World War II. Mom lost her father in 1944 while she was still in high school. So her plan had been to graduate high school and go to college to be a home economics teacher. But that didn't happen. Mom had to stay home, go to work, and help out the family. As I said, many of their siblings had been in California, San Diego, Indio, even Barstow. But 7 of Mom's siblings also moved to California and settled in the same little area, Mendota, California, the cantaloupe capital of the world. Now, when you're in the grocery store and if you see a cantaloupe from Mendota, it's going to be an A1. It wasn't really a surprise they moved to that area. That's where my dad's people had moved, and one of my mom's older sisters was married to my dad's older brother. So they all lived in the same farming community. I could tell you stories. The first one to move to California and to move to Rosamond, I call him the instigator. He was my uncle. His name was George Madison. He was married to my dad's sister, Pearl. And I called him Uncle Hack. Never knew he had the name George until his funeral. He was my Uncle Hack. They had 4 children. They lived here and moved here to Rosamond in the early 1950s. Some of you may know them: Melba, Laverne, George, and Florence, who we called Ponch. They lived in the house next to the Harsh house. And I'm going to explain to you about this Harsh house. You know, we weren't real big on addresses, you know, back at that time. So let me explain to you about the Harsh house. When you arrive in Rosamond, you've come from Lancaster on the freeway, and you take a ride onto Rosamond Boulevard, you know, as you're coming off the freeway, look down the embankment, and there's a little it used to be white clapboard house. I think they've painted it. That's the Harsh house. That's where Mr. Harsh lived. My Aunt Pearl and Uncle Hack lived right to the west of that house on the corner of C Street and the alley.
Yeah.
Tiny little place. Dad's younger brother, Fred, who also served in World War II, was the next to move to Rosamond. He was single, and he brought Grandpa and Grandma. And they lived in the house to the north behind the Harsh house. So, now, when you think about getting off the freeway, you'd be running over their house.
Yep.
Because that's where it's set, and when the freeway started to come in and they did all kinds of things to Rosamond Boulevard, a lot of houses were moved. But that's where I remember my grandparents living. They moved to Laurel Street when the freeway did come in and take their house. The next one to move to Rosamond was my Uncle Bobby. He was married to my dad's youngest sister, Rose. And you probably remember some of their children. They originally set up their home in Willow Springs, but sometimes in the late 50s, they moved to a brand new house on Elm Street, and they were there until they passed. They had 3 children. Gene, I know who he is. Ryder Robertson and Gary Robertson. Then my folks came, September of 1955. I came 2 weeks later. I was born the day before Antelope Valley Hospital opened. So I was born in Dr. Fornash's office in Lancaster on 10th Street West. I bet there's more of us. Today that's a beauty salon. The building is actually still there. Eventually my folks ended up on Glendower, 1958, in a brand new house. Brand new housing development. My oldest sister, Arlene, she doesn't like me to say she's the oldest, but she is. She was born in Fresno. My next older sister, the one with the loud mouth, was born in Mendota. Now, I wasn't going to say this, but the story has it that she was born in the building behind the bar. I've always believed that, personally. My younger sister, Sandy, was born in the Mojave Hospital. I don't know why I wasn't born there. I don't think Mom had enough time to figure it out. My youngest sister, Lori, was born in 1960-something at AV Hospital. So that's my family. The house that my folks lived in was 4 doors up to the north from the old Wayside Chapel, not the old one, just the old one. Now, these men came to Rosamond for one reason, besides to make a better life for their family, was Edwards Air Force Base. They worked building roads, hangars, runways, you name it, and houses. They built houses out at the base. Uncle Bobby swept the runway. So he met all, what do they call it, the right stuff?
Yes.
He met them all. Every pilot, because that's where his office was. He talked a lot about that kind of stuff. My dad was in a carpool with the old timers, Frank and Pappy King and Lyndon Johnson. I had found a picture of all those old coots. Funny story about Pappy. How many of you know the Kings? Yeah. Funny story about Pappy. Every Sunday, my mother would take us to church, and my dad would come visit Pappy would come visit my dad, and he always brought us bubble gum. You remember that kind of thing. And he continued doing that until Rhoda ate the bubble gum in her hair during a nap, and Mom had to cut off her braids. See, you should have kept your mouth shut. Okay, their spouses were housewives with dinner on the table when they came home from work, and their children attended Rosamond schools. Even the older ones, Melba and Florence, talked to me about going to school at Rosamond Elementary School. Back then it was an older school than the old school that's there now. Ryder Robertson was the first homecoming queen of Rosamond High School. And Arlene Young, my sister, was part of the graduating class of 1968, which was the first graduating class to go to Rosamond schools all 13 years. She wasn't the first class to graduate. Judy was a part of that class as well. That's right. Judy and my sister Arlene were good friends in high school. So that's my dad's side of the family. And my mom's older brother. See, you know, I kind of thought the story stopped there. You know, the young family. But when I got to thinking about it, it didn't. My mom's older brother, Jimmy, lived in Boron for as long as I can remember. I don't know when he got there, but that's where he always lived. He and his wife, Nella Mae, and they had 2 children. His name was Willie. We call him Buster. And their sister, Marilyn. Buster passed away in 1975. He was killed in an accident in the mine, trying to save another miner. So, I guess we've paid some of our dues. My mom's youngest sister, Opal Fennell, and her husband, J.C., moved to Boron in 1970 to work at Borax with their son, Mike. Now, what's that leading to? Considering the greatest generation and baby boomers of the young daughter or families, 29 settled in the Antelope Valley. Of course, families grew. Not everyone stayed in the Antelope Valley, but with a little old-fashioned arithmetic, and it dawned on me. I used that word because Mrs. Swanson, my 2nd grade teacher, taught me how to spell it. Okay, come on with me, everybody. You remember it? A rat in the house might eat the ice cream.
That's so cruel.
Yeah? Okay. From the Madison family, Melba married Frank Thomas. Anyone familiar with that name? Oh, you might be surprised.
Yeah, they will.
Oh, by the way, Rhoda was their flower girl. She was so cute. And every once in a while, she'll hang up and display her flower girl dress at the cleaners. So you'll have to ask her when she's going to do that. Melba and Frank stayed in the Antelope Valley in Lancaster and had 4 sons. Their oldest son, Mike Thomas, works at Rosamond Hills. His daughter Taylor owns Sister. Small world, eh? My Uncle Fred finally married, and he had a son, Curtis. Curtis has a daughter and 3 grandchildren. I'm not sure if they stayed in the Antelope Valley or not. But the Robertson family, Ryda's children, Corey and Camille, both live here in Rosamond. And Gary's children, Geraldine and Ian, still live in the area, and they have 3 grandchildren. Now, the Harold Young family had 5 daughters. I'm Charlene. I have 2 children, Tamara and JR. Tamara has 2 sons, Griffin and Hudson. JR, Gene Jr., has 4 children, Trey, Gene III, Ryan, Victoria, and Charlotte. My sister Sandy lives in Ridgecrest. That's still part of the Antelope Valley. She has 3 children, Dusty with 1 son, Ethan, and a granddaughter, Nevaeh. Her daughter Dina lives right here in Rosamond. Some of you might have had a massage with her or a facial treatment. She has 3 children. Jason graduated high school, Rosamond High, last year. Briley's currently going to West Park. And Jameson. Oh, and by the way, JR's children are all enrolled in Rosamond schools. Rhoda's son, Timmy, just finished over 26 years of service in the Air Force and separated with the rank of Senior Master Sergeant. Graduated from Rosamond High. He has a son named Tim Wayne II. We call him TW. Graduate of Rosamond High. Still local. And his son, Carter, is local too. Now, if you count with me, that is a total of 6 young generations here in the Antelope Valley. I didn't realize that. And grandchildren. So, besides the 29 settlers of the young daughter family, we have added an additional 57 descendants still living in the Antelope Valley, for a total of 86. That's quite a footprint. That amazed me. So thank you for asking me to do this. Okay, speaking of family, I'm going to talk a little about my own, and that starts with meeting a young man at church one night. Gene Melchers was raised on a farm in Iowa and arrived at Edwards in 1971, fresh out of boot camp and tech school. He had never, now I'm repeating him, remember? He had never seen such a barren place. Yeah. He thought they had landed him on the moon. He was a fuel specialist and planned on farming when he finally got out of the Air Force. I suppose you could say it was love at first sight. My mother warned me about marrying so young. Besides, he was a Lutheran. I finished high school, 1973. We were married in July. We honeymooned at Lake Tahoe. His first day back to work, besides the fact that he walked in our new apartment and dropped all of his clothes all the way through the house. How many of you have experienced that? He only did it the one time. He had received orders to be transferred on a 1-year unaccompanied assignment to Thailand. This was his first day back. Ouch. I went to my folks. I poured out my soul to my father. Oh, what are we going to do? I'm in tears. Oh, we are not sure what. There must be something we can do. Remember, my dad's been working for the military. You know, he was in the military and he's worked out at Edwards for 20 years with these GIs. What did he say? He laughed. What did you think was going to happen? He's been stationed at Edwards for 2 years. Of course he was going to get orders. Such sentiment. You know the old saying, when God closes a door, he opens a window? Yes. I've had a lot of windows. Gene transferred to Utapao Air Base in Thailand in October. But we were blessed. I belong to the Assembly of God. And it just happened that our church had a mission at Utapao for the military. So, I got my passport, I got some visas in it, and I flew TWA all the way to Utapao. It took over 20 hours at that time. But we were blessed again. The church not only had the mission, it had an available apartment to rent. So Gene took the apartment. He had it all ready for me. He washed, he painted, he even bought me a stove with an oven, which was unheard of. Got it all ready for me. And we were very involved with the mission. Had a lot of GI friends, and I have to say that I can't imagine a better way to start a marriage. We had no interference. We had nobody to rely on but ourselves. And I think that was a good thing. I learned enough Thai to speak to get through the market. I could say my numbers and ask how much. I became very brave enough to ride a bot bus. What is a bot bus? A bot bus looks like a little old Datsun pickup. Oh, you're smiling. You know what a bot bus is, don't you? And it's got this roof on it, and it's got a wooden plank down one side and a wooden plank down the other side with no tailgate. And you do this. And the bus pulls over. You climb up and sit on that plank, and you give them, a baht at that time was a nickel. There were no sides on this thing. You literally took your life in your hand. But that was the only transportation we had, except for the national bus, and you didn't want to ride that. I learned that geckos don't fall off the ceiling. I learned to order Thai cow pot, which is pork fried rice, but not get the spicy, because those chili peppers will burn your tonsils. We toured Bangkok. We vacationed at a lovely little beach. We survived a monsoon. And I made 3 trips into Cambodia to renew my visa. Why 3 trips? Because You could only stay in Thailand on a tourist visa for 90 days, and you had to leave the country. Cambodia just happened to be the closest. My third trip, 1974, was Khmer Rouge. One of the scariest things that ever happened in my life. I rode with another tourist wife, and we had a Thai driver. And of course, there's roadblocks, and we had to have our visas. So I had to get a Cambodia visa to get into Cambodia, and a Thai visa to get back. And some young punk Cambodian GI took our papers. He looked at us in the car. He jumped on the back of a little motorbike and took off. Remember, this is 1974 Khmer Rouge. He did turn around and come back and gave it to him and just had a hoot. All the while, Jean decided that was my last trip to Cambodia. He was transferred to Castle Air Force Base in Merced, and again, these little windows. The local Assembly of God had a little house for rent. It was just 2 doors down from their church. We rented it, we bought used furniture, and we were in this most comfy little environment. Our daughter Tara was born, and Jean separated from the Air Force in 75. Our little family moved back to Jean's hometown to Anamosa, Iowa. Jean took the first job he could get, little family to support, with Georgia Pacific, a company that manufactured and cut cardboard boxes. We bought our first home, a 2-story, 3-unit rental. We moved into the bottom and rented out the 2 rooms upstairs. Jean became a landlord. Over the next 3 years, I started working weekends. My first job, washing dishes. At a cute little restaurant named The Rainbow that was very, everybody liked it. I expanded my position by learning food preparation and cooking. And because of the business skills I learned from Betsy Ross and Patty Queen, I was hired a second job as a library aide with the Anamosa High School, working full-time 4 days a week. 1 day each week I took the day off, or I had the day off, and I attended Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids. JR was born in January of 79. Jean quit GP. That's what you do after you have a brand new baby, right? Yeah. He quit GP and he went to work as a full-time farmhand. Remember, he wanted to be a farmer. He worked harder with longer hours and less pay, but he loved it. We settled in a little farmhouse out in the country. And we grew a huge garden. I actually milked cows. We had a good life. I continued working at the high school until one day in October I came home and Jean told me he had quit his job and we were moving to California. I called, quit my job immediately, called my mother in tears. Okay, sidebar. He quit because the farmer wanted him to add additional work for no additional pay. So what happened? I found him another job as a farmhand at a different place that raised purebred Angus. And it worked out great until that boss decided he needed to go on the road with them to deliver these things. Yeah, hither and yon for weeks on end. We left Iowa the day after Christmas and spent New Year's Day with my folks in Rosamond New Year's Day 1980. We bought our second home, 7 houses north of my parents' home on Glendower. Olaf Lansgard was our agent, and Mr. and Mrs. Fairchild, cannot remember their first name for Pauline and Mr. Fairchild, carried the note. One set of parents were ecstatic, the other, not so much. Gene joined the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. He started apprenticeship training and worked 6 months of the year. In this trade, you know that you're going to start a job in order to finish it. In September, Tamara started kindergarten with Mrs. Garlinger, Rosamond Elementary School, and I did some substituting in the cafeteria at Rosamond High. In January 1981, I began working for Southern Kern Unified as an instructional aide at Rosamond High School. I was assigned to run the snack bar, assist the cafeteria program, which was a food service ROP program. So we made and served lunch, and to do clerical work because there were other ROP classes. Eventually, after a couple years, they requested that I start a career center. What did I know about career centers? Not much. Went back to school. A window opened. In 1983, SKUSD offered the very last parachute program for classified employees. A lot of long-term employees retired. This included Ruby Lambert and June Johnson. Greta Castle took June's job. Lois Stevens took Greta's job, and they gave me June's job because I was the only one with experience in the cafeteria.
Sidebar, excuse me, Joe Fairchild. Joe.
Thank you very much. I could remember their son's name, Doug, because I went to school with him, but after that I was lost. Okay. I didn't finish. I told you about who got what job, and I became the cafeteria worker / supervisor at Rosamond Elementary School. Yep, you know what? With me, there were 3 full-time people and a part-time. Dorothy Nowoski, Martha Petricelli, and Mildred Stump. And we fed Rosamond Elementary School and transported the food to Tropico. There was a second kitchen at the high school that served both Rosamond High and at that time it was Hamilton Junior High. Over the next 17 years, I loved my job. The aerospace industry grew, so did Rosamond. Southern Kern and the 2 child nutrition program grew, and by the year 2000, there were 5 school campuses. We had, and you're all aware of that. I remember as a kid, our population and elevation was about the same thing, 2,500. So now I believe it's over 18,000. Okay, we had class reduction, class size reduction, a ratio of 1 to 22. We had a lot of employees. I now had a staff of 20 people that included clerical. So my job completely changed. I continued taking college classes sporadically. I graduated from the University of Phoenix in 2000 with a business degree. And in 2002, the district offered the last golden apple to credentialed teachers. Mike Richardson retired, and I was selected to replace him. He'd been in that business office for a long time. I spent the next 8 years in charge of the district's budget. Each year we saw increased enrollment until 2007. The home mortgage industry imploded, causing a ripple effect to the construction, financial industry. You're all aware of it. The next 3 years we saw a continued decrease in enrollment, which meant decreased revenue. We saw the closure of Hamilton Elementary School and cuts to every program, including employee layoffs. Many of those people were my friend. As a matter of fact, I had to tell my son, who had been hired by the district, and I wish Tina was here, because he was involved in, Reese Lazat was involved in this too. One of them was going to get laid off. Corky Robinson flipped a quarter, because they were both hired the very same day, signed the very same time. JR won the toss. Fortunately, changes to people resigning and whatnot, neither one ended up being laid off. But that was hard. It was hard for me. I was at my wit's end. We took a little vacation back to Oklahoma and Texas that summer. Completely through my vacation, I was getting phone calls from work. This problem, that problem, how are we going to pay for this? We got to make payroll. First day back to work, it was worse. It was time for someone else to take over this headache. I gave a 6-month notice that I would retire at the end of December, and I did just that, finishing 30 years with Southern KERN Unified. It was much later that the financial crisis of the world that we were going through was dubbed the Great Recession. We had no idea that it was going to hit as hard as it did, as deep as it did. My first year of retirement was tough. Without the regularity I was so used to, I had too much time on my hands. We continued to be involved with the Rosamond Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce, and I continued coaching my grandkids' soccer teams in AYSO. Speaking of soccer, in 1984, a group of dedicated Rosamondites, namely Doreen Zaker and Mike O'Connor, started 2 teams, a 5- and a 6-year-old soccer team that was signed up to play games at Lancaster City Park. It might as well have been English football. So needless to say, they didn't do very good. But that was my introduction to the world of soccer. JR played on the 6-year-old team. Once in a while, an airman from the base would be talked into taking over the old coaching job, or at least assist. You know, if they came from the East Coast, they know a little about soccer and would do a little better. So we had to learn gradually. Under Doreen's guidance, Doreen Zaker, the number of teams grew, and we joined the AYSO League at Edwards. Eventually, Doreen convinced Rosamond High School to start a boys' soccer team. And they did. And it was AYSO that bought their uniforms and most of their equipment. Today, our Rosamond High School soccer team is vying for the CIF championship. They won their first game. Let's see how well they do. By 1987, I was tired, and I decided that I was tired of my kid losing all the time. So, you know, my mother taught me to, you know, you gotta gripe about something, you better do something about it. So Sheila, Carl, and I decided we were going to learn about soccer. And to do that, we took a weekend training class out at Edwards. It became FIFA registered referees. I figure if you're going to coach the game, you might as well know what the rules are. So Pete Katazonik and Pete took offense and I coached defense. And we whipped those guys up. Matter of fact, Jeff might have been on our team that year. We put those kids in, and by God, the third graders, and we beat Edwards and took first place. I'm telling you, that GI that was coaching the other team wouldn't even shake my hand. Oh well. Now for the bad stuff. In 1996, the high school decided to have a girls' soccer team. And I was going to be the coach. Well, I'd been coaching the girls. Oh, you know all about this. I've been coaching the girls' team for the last few years. You know what they call themselves? The Whiny Weenies. And it fit. It fit. But we did it. We started that soccer team again. AYSO came in and supplied uniforms. Of course, I already had a lot of soccer equipment, and we never won a game. But it was the start of the program. And you know where those girls are now who have come through that AYSO program? We've had 2 teams. Girls soccer take CIF finals. And I was more than happy to provide them money to get their CIF rink. Okay, I retired after 1 year. I knew they needed more than me. I came out of soccer retirement in 2001 to catch my step-grandson, Dakota. I continued coaching every grandchild through 2018. That's a total of another 30 years. Now I only watch. I've been a member of the Rosamond Chamber of Commerce since the 1980s. I suggested holding an event to coincide with the Armed Forces Appreciation Parade, and that's how Septemberfest was started. You know what happens when you make a suggestion. So I chaired for a number of years, but as the chair of the original committee, I was crowned the first Miss Septemberfest. Future Miss Septemberfest included Kimberly Donovan, Sherry Duman, and Ella Garcia. The Rosamond Rotary Club was started in 1995, and Jan and I have both served multiple times as presidents. And although we have recently merged with 2 other Rotary clubs to form the Antelope Valley Rotary Club, we still meet every Thursday at noon at Jay's Hideaway. And we will continue hosting the 15th Annual Sheriff's Appreciation Dinner this year on April 4th. Now, Jean is going to continue and talk to you about Rosamond Cleaners and Melchers Construction.
Well, I'm not sure I can compete with that. She did a marvelous job of explaining all the details of life. At Rosamond Cleaners on Diamond Street was built about 1947, as best we can say, as a dress shop. And the cleaning services were added later to press out wrinkles in clothes. So that went on for till about I think it was 1986, and we decided to buy it. And Rhoda came out from Texas to run it. She had been working in dry cleaners for the last, 10 years or so, and had a handle on how to press press clothes and dry clean and stuff like that. So we used some of the money that we had gotten from the sale of our duplex in Iowa to start our business here in Rosamond. I started building in 1982. I built a duplex on Desert and Poplar. Actually, I had no idea what I was doing. I had been in the Carpenters Union all of 1 year as an apprentice. But somehow I figured out, they could build it, I could too, I guess. So I scraped together a little money, and we went from there. So after we opened, I guess I can't follow that very well. The next year I built a triplex on C Street, and the economy was coming up, and I got hooked up with a guy by the name of Hugo Hodder from Los Angeles who wanted me to build some houses for him. I built those. I think I built 9 of them for him, and then he wanted me to build a complex on 15th Street, so we built 120 units over there. In the process, I was building some other homes. So I guess I've been building homes ever since. I guess I could give you a little background for myself. My parents immigrated from Germany. My father immigrated in 1923 and went back and got his wife in 1930. They got married, lived on a farm in Iowa. They had 7 children. I was the baby. So I have 4 brothers, actually 3 brothers and 3 sisters, all older than I am naturally. There's quite a spread in us. My oldest brother was 20 years older than I am, so I was the late one. Actually, he was about 71 when I graduated from high school. So that's kind of how that worked. I got 5 siblings left, or no, 4 siblings left. I have 2 pass away so far. I joined the Air Force right out of high school, and I got shipped out here. But I met a guy that we got along pretty good, and he drugged me to church with him. Said, this is a fun place to go. So, and there's girls. So Rhoda liked him a lot. So we kind of hooked up with his sisters, I guess. It worked out pretty good for us. At least it did work out pretty good for me. I don't know about Rhoda. She's out of luck. We're still working. We're still building. Still looking forward to improving Rosamond and making it as good as we can get. Still working in trying to increase the livability of Rosamond through charity and helping the businesses. So if you have any questions, give me a holler. I don't know what else to say about myself.
I'd like to share with you the data that he, besides the 122 bedroom units he built an additional 16 for himself. Over the last 38 years, he's constructed 69 homes in Rosamond, with a total of 82 homes overall in the Antelope Valley. So, and we believe in our community. We're both members of the Chamber of Commerce, have been involved in so many community things, and my time has now run out. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer.
Charlene forgot that, I was honorary mayor.
Oh, yeah, you was on
I wasn't supposed to mention that, you were. He was also president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he's currently a director on the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you. I learned a lot of things, and I had Charlene as a student, and I learned things that I didn't know about her family. Just one more reminder, a few people came in later, and I wanted to make sure that anyone who was here would sign the sympathy card that we're going to send to the family of Clifford Burton. So even if you didn't know Clifford, I would like to get that card filled up with names, because his family certainly was important in this community. Siobhan, do you want to talk about our next meeting?
As Charlene can attest, people get sick, things happen. We still beat you into submission. Yeah. Beg, plead, whine, say please, please, please. So next month, our goal is to have the Lands Guards and have Terry Gutierrez organize that. You'd think with all those kids we'd get, it would be easier to herd them together. It's not. But, and also, as we're doing this, please get in touch with me and say, I'd love to share my family story. I'd love to share my family history. These things are so invaluable. And, you know, having Cliff Burton speak, I am so thankful that we had that opportunity. And these will be stories that, and thank you, John, for recording these. These will be things that will be on YouTube. They will be part of history. They will be things that you can share with your family and with your extended Rosamond family and Antelope Valley family. And it's important that we have this. Fran, where are you? Fran was the one who had said, we need to get these local family stories, and we really do. And so thank you very, very much, Charlene. Sick, dead, and dying, we appreciate it. But I would love on you.
Okay, I guess that's it. So thank you again all for coming. Oh, wait a minute.
You have something you need to give.
Oh, I do. Oh, thank you for thank you. I need help.
Teamwork.
We really want to show some appreciation to the people who take the time to come and speak to us, because it's a lot of work to put this together, although it's really kind of neat to have it all put together. So we are going to give you one of our settler maps, which was done by Shirley Harrington in memory of Doreen Settle. All right, thank you. So I guess that's it. Thank you for coming.